I'm a mixed breed. I'm a lion, I'm a tiger, and I'm a gorilla in one. I'm a mixed breed. You only can find me in the jungle, you feel me?
And Cutler has it intercepted. It is picked off by Kwon Alexander. Evades the pass rush and it's hit hard at the 25 by Kwon Alexander.
All right, what's going on, everybody? This is JT again with the Buck Ball Podcast. This is the Kwon Alexander podcast, and I got a lot of things to get to with Kwon. I think you guys are going to like it. It's not going to be the longest show in the world. And also, we're going to get to a couple other things. You know, this is the podcast before the Bucs play the Saints. You know, we're going to go over what to watch, you know, who's healthy for both teams. And, you know, we're just going to dive right into it. So, obviously, we're going to start off with who's healthy, because the ideal situation is always you want to go into the beginning of the season with a full healthy roster, basically a clean slate of players and talent to see what everybody can really do. And we're already behind the eight ball with obviously Vita Vea. He's not going to play. He hasn't practiced since I think before the first even preseason game. So it's been almost 4 weeks, and it's going to be longer than that. I've seen some people saying, like, okay, well, he can play. They're just kind of, he's ready to go. They're kind of holding him out. No, I don't think that's going to happen. I just know there's just no way he's been out this long, and you're just going to throw him in there. But now the concern was Donovan Smith. Looks like he's practicing, limited, but he's practicing. I'm 100% positive he's going to play, and even if he's not 100%, then you're going to see a lot of, you know, 2 tight end sets or, you know, chip blocking. You know, even if he's playing 85%, I'm sure they're going to want to have him on the field. I think for the Saints, Andres Pete, the offensive lineman for them, that's someone to keep an eye on. Questionable when I looked at the injury report. You know, but before Donovan Smith was practicing this week, we were talking about offensive line combinations and who could go where, and they were saying, you know, Mike Lidke, or maybe DeMar Dotson moving over to right tackle. Well, DeMar did a press conference, not really a press conference, kind of interview, locker room, and he said they haven't said nothing to him about that yet, and if they did, then he needs to know now. So that's obviously an indication that that's not going to happen. Now, obviously, I think the biggest thing that we're all going to watch, this is what we're all going to watch, because it's the one thing we bitched and moaned and complained about last year, is the defensive backs playing so far off, the defensive line getting no pressure, so it forces you to bring your linebackers on a blitz, not just on a surprise effort, you know, just to try to get pressure, and that's not just the way to win. So obviously we're going to be looking at the defensive line the whole game. This is probably going to be the most analyzed thing that you're going to see the whole entire game. Is how are we getting Drew Brees uncomfortable out of his pocket? He doesn't get out of the pocket and move around. He likes to drop back and climb the pocket. Now you need your guys to be crushing the interior, and you need the guys outside to be collapsing that pocket. And he's not one to take sacks. He's going to try to get the ball out of his hands. Now this brings me to another point. If the D-line is getting pressure and Mike Smith is actually letting his cornerbacks play press, which I think would be the best idea, because you know that when your defensive backs are playing off against Drew Brees, all he's going to do is pick you apart underneath. It's gonna completely take you out of your game plan. So that's obviously going to be something to watch. But you also want to watch and see how, let's say, MJ Stewart's going to play, because you think he's going to play in the slot. Vernon Hargraves is healthy. Brent Grimes is healthy. Secondary is healthy. Chris Conte, Justin Evans, I'm expecting a big year out of him. You know, after I did the Justin Evans podcast, Mike Smith said that he had Pro Bowl potential, and honestly, I'm not no expert, but when I did watch the 4 or 5 games that I watched of him, I could see it. Now, the thing that I'm most excited to see is he was playing behind a really bad defensive line. And most of those players aren't even on the Bucs defense anymore. So you can't really sit back and take the chances that you want, because you know that there's no pressure, so you have to stay back and keep everything in front of you. Now, obviously this is the first game. And I feel it is a winnable game. Of course, it's a winnable game. It's a division opponent. We both know each other very well. The key to the game is going to be obviously stopping Alvin Kamara and Drew Brees. That is the two things. But also Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas, I'm anxious to see who is lined up in front of him. Is it going to be Vernon? Is it going to be Brent? Who knows? Carlton Davis even might show up in this game somehow, some way. Now, that's what I'm excited to see. Now, MJ Stewart, I'm really excited to see because if you just went by what he did in preseason, he's shown he's completely competent in his ability. And a lot of people are saying, why would you pick him? He hadn't had an interception in 2 years. Sometimes that's not always the case. It all depends on the scheme and what they were asking him to do at North Carolina. Now, Mike Mayock said that he could have been the steal of the draft. That's something to keep of note. So, with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive into the Kwon Alexander analysis that I did. I did watch 3 games. I try to watch at least 4 or 5, but work's been crazy because I've been working 14, 15 hours a day. And then I come home, I get called back into work, so I'm just too tired and uninspired and non-motivated to do it. Also, I was waiting on somebody else to come on the show with me, but that didn't work out. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with Kwon Alexander. And to me, when I think about Kwon, I think about the passion, the leadership, the love for the game, all the intangible things that you want in not just any player, but let's just say the quarterback of your defense, because that's what a middle linebacker is. Their job is to, have the mic in their helmet, delegate all the checks, make sure everybody knows what they're doing, and even maybe call a defensive audible if you per se. So when you think about Kwon, you think about that Atlanta game where he probably played, and this is his rookie year, where he probably played one of the best defensive games I've ever seen from a single player in my lifetime. And that's how you know this guy has special talent. And another thing you have to think about is he's missed 8 games his NFL career, and that's 8 games that he hasn't gotten the experience in, as opposed to some of the other best linebackers in the league who people are saying between 1 and 2 is Bobby Wagner and Luke Kuechly. My measuring stick is Luke Kuechly. For one, I'm not taking nothing away from Bobby Wagner. I watched him play. I went back and watched some highlights, and I even watched one game on Game Pass just to get a gauge of kind of how he plays. But to me, the measuring stick is Luke Kuechly, and he's right here in our division. I keep an eye on him the most. So what I want to do is I want to go back and look at Kwon's first 3-year stats versus Luke Kuechly's first 3-year stats. So this is what we're going to do, and you're going to see that it's not all that much different. Now, the thing that I will say about Kwon is kind of like Jameis, he gets over aggressive in times, and maybe he lets that passion carry on a little too much in a game. Now he has these moments, I'll say, where he'll just bite on some running back out the flat thing, and he cuts it upfield, and then he's out of position, he gets caught flat-footed. Him and Levante David both do that, but you know what? Some of the best defenders in the league get caught doing the same things. So that's not taking away anything from him, but if he wants to be elite, some of the things I think he has to improve on to make himself elite are these, and they're key. Also, it's in coverage. He has probably 3 or 4 plays a game that I watched, especially in the Panthers game, especially in the first Panthers game at home where we lost. Is one of the most ugliest games I've ever seen from an offensive standpoint. Defense didn't play all too bad, but when I was watching just him over pursuing, getting caught, biting on things, missing tackles, being out of place in coverage, he had a horrible game. Excuse me. But as the game went on, he did improve. Now, the Bills game, which is the first one that he came back after he was out for the hamstring since the Chicago game, which is almost a full 4 games, pretty much 5 if you count the Chicago game where he got the interception. He pretty much went out after that. The Buffalo game, he had 2 really bad plays. He had Tyrod Taylor closed in a pocket. All he had to do was rush and he could tackle him. He let Tyrod move up, shake him out of his shoes, and take off for a first down. And then the second one, the second play I noticed that was just something that you don't see elite middle linebackers or elite players miss, and that was when the Bucs pretty much had already fumbled the ball. Adam Humphries fumbled it, and the Buffalo Bills were in it was a 3rd and 8, 3rd and 6, something like that. But they needed a stop. They had to get a stop in order to get the ball back, in order to get a chance to go back down and still win the game. Now, first of all, he misdiagnosed where the play was going. Then when he realized where the play was going, he still had a chance to tackle the I believe it was a slot receiver coming in from the backside. I wasn't paying attention where that was going, really. I was paying attention to Kwon the whole time. And he had a chance to make the tackle, and he over-pursued, and the guy shook him out of his shoes again and cut it upfield for a first down. And when I seen that, I just kept thinking back to when I was watching Luke Kuechly. Luke Kuechly doesn't miss them tackles. Now, does this mean that I think Kwon Alexander doesn't deserve a contract extension? Oh, which, by the way, not to get off topic, he is currently, well, his agent is currently working on a contract extension, which I think is great. He deserves it. But when I see plays like that, I think, there's just a little bit more he can improve on. Now, a lot of people in the league think he's a top player. According to Bleacher Report, they do a top, I think it's 100 middle linebackers in the league, and Kwon was 15. And they have this scale where they grade everything out from a 0 to 25. And he got a 19 in coverage, and I think it was like a 17 in blitzing. Pass rushing. Well, if you grade it by that, you got to think he hasn't had a good defensive line. So when he has been blitzing, they know that he's coming. I mean, the whole thing about a blitz is supposed to be by surprise. It's by design. It's not you're not meant to use your linebackers just to get pressure all the time like we were doing last year. So I expect, my predictions is he's going to have at least 5 sacks this year. Levante David's going to have probably at least 5. I'm going to say Kwon's going to have at least 4 interceptions, and he's going to have over 10 tackles for loss. Just for the simple fact that it's going to be a hat on the defensive line. Everyone's going to be worried about their assignment, and he's going to be able to sneak in and get in there and make some plays. Sorry, I was reading something here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you the first 3 years that Kwon is in the league, and I'm going to read you the first 3 years that Luke Kuechly is in the league, and I want you to listen to how eerily similar the numbers are, and you also have to remember that Kwon's missed 8 games compared to Luke Kuechly missing 0 his first 3 years. And Luke Kuechly was dominant his first 2-3 years. You can say that, but he's also elite now. Like, he's number 2 in the league now. And you got to imagine they have 3 years on Kwon, him and Bobby Wagner both. So let's go ahead and get into this. 2015 rookie year, he beat out Bruce Carter as a 4th-round player. He played 12 games, 4 with I think it was a banned energy drink, something like that. So let's look at this right here. 93 tackles, 59 solo. Luke Kuechly, 164 tackles, 103 solo. He had 3 sacks. Luke Kuechly had 1 sack. 2 forced fumbles. Luke Kuechly had 0. 2 interceptions. Luke Kuechly had 2. Pass deflections. It was 9. Luke Kuechly had 8. And 7 tackles for loss. Luke Kuechly had 11 tackles for loss. Now, those numbers are pretty similar, and you got to think he missed 4 games. 4 games. Now, 2016 was Kwon's best year all around. Fully healthy, didn't miss a game. And that's when the defense was coming on late that year, and we went 9-7. Blah, blah, blah. But let's go ahead and go to 2016. All right. 145 tackles, 108 solo. Luke Kuechly, 156, 93 solo. Kwon had 3 sacks. Luke Kuechly had 2. Kwon had 1 forced fumble. Luke Kuechly had 0. He had 1 interception. Luke Kuechly had 3, so he got him there. 7 pass deflections. Luke Kuechly 7 pass deflections. And 10 tackles for loss for Kwon Alexander. 10 tackles for loss for Luke Kuechly. Numbers are pretty similar, right? They both played a full 16-game season, and you could argue that he was one of the best defenders in the league. And if he hadn't missed 8 games, then he'd probably be considered, more. He'd probably get more credit. Now we're going to go to 2017. Obviously, he missed 4 games with a hammy, but we're going to go ahead and start with 97 tackles, 70 solo. Luke Kuechly blew him out of the water, 154, 99 solo. Kwon had 0 sacks, which I think him and Levante David neither had 0 sacks. That's just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. Anyways, back to it. Kwon had 7 tackles for loss. Luke Kuechly had 8 tackles for loss. Kwon had 1 forced fumble. Luke Kuechly had 1 forced fumble. Kwon had 3 interceptions. Luke Kuechly had 1. So, now if you sit there and said, okay, Luke Kuechly didn't have as many interceptions, and Kwon had more, so Kwon's better in coverage. No, that's not why I'm saying any of this. I'm a big believer in stats have context. Just like I'm a big believer in pass deflections are just as important as interceptions for a defensive back. Now, I read you off these stats for a reason, just to put a numbers aspect to how he is compared to some of the best in the league, but you still have to go back and watch the games yourself, and that's why I did that. Now, the last game that I did watch was the Jets game. Kwon was playing really well this game. Really well. He was good in coverage. Of course, he misses a few tackles here and there, and if I had to say anything about Kwon, that's probably his biggest knock, is tackles. And most of it is just over-pursuing or being overhyped. Now, that doesn't mean he's a bad linebacker. A lot of players fall tendency to that. But all in all, I believe Kwon is going to be a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers probably until he retires. He's only going to get better. Like I said, think about it. He's the top 2 best linebackers, according to the experts, is Bobby Wagner and Luke Kuechly. And Kwon is 3 years behind them. So, with that in mind, this is a good thing to have. We have a lot of players we have to resign, and Kwon being a 4th-round player, that is nothing but a really, really good positive on Jason Licht's resume. That you have basically 4 players from your 2015 draft class that you have to figure out how to resign, and that is a good problem that you want to have financially as a organization, as a football team. What I'm most excited about Kwon is he has the things that you can't teach. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, you can't teach his passion. You can't teach his energy, his leadership. You can't teach it. And then also you pair it with his athletic ability. And he's only going to get better. He's not bad in coverage, but if I had to say it, it's his tackling. I mean, not every linebacker in the league is going to be good at stopping a running back or a slot receiver. I mean, it's more about being in position to make the play and maybe trusting your instincts to break on a ball here and there, blah, blah, blah. Most of the time, the middle linebacker is going to be the one shooting gaps and things like that. So, all in all, I'm giving Kwon a solid 7.5 to 8 out of 10 from last year, just from what I've seen. And you got to think, he's probably rough coming back, missing 4 games with a hamstring. He probably came in and was trying to make plays. He's trying to make up for lost time and things like that. Well, guys, that is going to do it for today's episode of the Buckball Podcast, brought to you by JT Westbury. We're probably going to dig in a little bit more and do a game preview on the New Orleans Saints, maybe in depth, to get some stats going on there. But I hope you guys like it. And always, when you listen, shoot me a comment or a direct message on Twitter. My handle is Buck_ball 711. Just let me know how I'm doing. Talk to me about it. We can debate things. I don't have no problem with that. But that's going to do it, guys. All right.